Hello everyone, I'm Kayla Kathleen, and I'm here today with a mid-year book haul. So just jumping right in, early in the year I had a little Books A Million trip and I got Better Together by Christine Riccio. I have read Again But Better by Christine Riccio and I did not love it, but this was in the sale section for less than $5, so I thought, why not? This one has always sounded a little more appealing to me than Again But Better. I'm interested to see if her writing improved after her debut. And I really love the covers, and I like that it's Parent Trap inspired. On that same trip, I picked up Enchantée by Guida Trélisse. I'm a big fan of France, so that was part of the appeal. The beautiful cover was another part of the appeal. I honestly do not know much about this one. I think it's historical fiction. I think it's also fantasy. Obviously it involves France. That's my knowledge on this one. And again, this was in the sale section for like $5 or something. And this one has always drawn my eye in the bookstore, so seeing it on sale was irresistible. After that, from a thrift store, I found In Pieces by Sally Field. So again, this one was very cheap, less than $5. My mom had actually read this one recently, so it'll be fun to read a book in common with her. And I am generally a fan of Sally Field, so I think it'll be an interesting story. I know it's a heavy, sad story, but yes, also excited for this one. This one recently, or upcoming, will be appearing in a TBR game, but then it got taken off by the game. Next, I actually ordered a couple of books online that I specifically wanted. I ordered them using a Barnes & Noble gift card for my birthday, and those were The Ravaged by Norman Reedus. I'm just a big fan of Norman Reedus and The Walking Dead. This is ghostwritten, but it does scream Norman. It's about bikers, it takes place across America. It's his vibe for sure. The cover is also his vibe. And the other book that I ordered using that gift card was All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And I had my eye on this one for a very long time because I'm always interested in World War II stories. And the show came out, I believe, on Netflix, and I watched that, and while I enjoyed it, I also felt, just from watching the show, that it felt like the book would be a lot better and more in-depth, and so I decided it was finally time to get the book. But I'm not in a huge rush to read it. I don't mind if I kind of forget some of the details of the show before I get to it. After that, I found a new little free library on a neighborhood walking path nearby, and this little free library is always providing good stuff. It is the most consistent little free library I have ever found, so it's very exciting. But the first book that I got from that library was Walkable City by Jeff Speck, which was not necessarily like the most exciting book ever to find in a little free library. But I do try to incorporate nonfiction into my reading while also not being super willing to spend a lot of money on it, since nonfiction just isn't my main form of reading. And so whenever I can find one for free in a little free library or cheap some other way, I'm all over it. And I do think this will be an interesting one. It's not similar to any sort of nonfiction I've ever read. After that, I had a big haul from Books A Million. Their sales section was really bumping that day. I got 4 books that day, all I think, $5 or less. The first one being Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And I've seen this one around on BookTube. It's got a cute cover. I really like the color. And it's just a contemporary YA. I don't know much about it beyond that, but I do enjoy contemporary YA, so that and the price and the cover and the fact that I see it on BookTube was all it took for me to pick it up. The second one I picked up that day was another Rachel Lynn Solomon selection. I've never read this author before, so it'll be interesting to see if I like her since I already have 2 of her books. But that one is We Can't Keep Meeting Like This, and I just really liked the illustration on the cover of this one. The wedding cake immediately drew my eye because I love weddings. I'm working on a wedding book myself right now, so it was just an insta-buy for me. The third book I picked up that day was 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. And again, I have seen this one around on BookTube a lot, probably even more than Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. Again, it has a cover that just draws the eye, but But again, I don't know much about it besides it being a fantasy YA. And then the final book that I picked up that day was another big booktube book, and that was Ace of Spades by, I apologize if I mispronounce, Faraday Abiki Ayamidi. This is another YA fantasy. It's a boarding school YA fantasy, which is fun. I haven't read a boarding school fantasy in a long time. And yeah, again, it's just got that bold cover that you see on BookTube all the time. Next, after that big Books A Million trip, I went back to the little free library, and on that trip I found 3 books. The first being My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I already have A Little Life, and these two, A Little Life and My Dark Vanessa, get compared a lot on BookTube. I think My Dark Vanessa tends to go over better. I think people tend to find that it handles its extremely heavy topics more sensitively. A Little Life kind of has a lot more controversy surrounding it, I feel. So when I saw this one, I wanted to pick it up, and I'm planned to read them both close to each other. It's gonna be a lot of heavy reading there, but I'm just interested to see them both right next to each other to compare them. But this one is about an inappropriate student-teacher relationship that is being reflected upon by the young girl who is in the relationship many years later when she hears about the teacher getting in trouble for having inappropriate relations with teenagers, and her kind of reckoning with the fact that she never viewed the relationship as bad or abusive before, and now she's having to look back on the relationship differently. It was partially inspired by Lolita, and I think kind of trying to turn Lolita on its head a bit, so I might also purchase Lolita when I read those two and just read all 3 of them at once and just really have the heaviest reading month of all time, because I'm also interested in comparing this one to Lolita, which I've never read. But that is probably a long way away because both of those are far down on the TBR. The next book I picked up on that free little library trip was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and this one is about a Black woman who is confronted while babysitting a white child in public and being accused of kidnapping, and the mother attempting to help her as much as she can. And yeah, it's just about the dynamics of that whole situation and how they play out. So another heavy topic, but I'm sure also very fascinating and a good look into the human psyche. And then the final book that I picked up on that free little library trip was a novel told in verse, which I have read one novel told in verse before and I really liked it, so I am interested to read more. I think I like novels told in verse better than just straight poetry, but that one was Chlorine Sky by Mahogany L. Browne. So yeah, just as soon as I saw it was a novel told in verse, I picked it up. After that, maybe like a week later, I went back to the free little library. It's gonna be hard to resist going to that free little library just all the time. And on that trip, I found 2 more books. The first being The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. And I picked up this one based on the title. It sounds like a fun Irish romance, which I am down for. And the other book that I picked up on that trip was Hester by Lori Ligo Albanese. And this one is a retelling of The Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne of course, which I have not read The Scarlet Letter. I have seen Easy A though. And I do not plan to read The Scarlet Letter along with this. I just don't have a ton of interest in reading the original text, but I am still interested enough to pick this one up for free, and I do like the cover. After that, I had another Barnes & Noble trip specifically to pick up the 2nd and 3rd book in the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson, which I've already read. I didn't pick up the final one because it's still in hardcover and I'm waiting for paperback, but I also got my husband like a surprise book that day, Tokyo Vice, which I don't have here in the haul, and I have also already read that one. But there was a buy one, get one 50% going on that day, and Tokyo Vice was in that section, so I looked around for a book for myself for half price. And the one I picked up was The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. I have been working my way through TJ Klune's backlog. I read The House in the Cerulean Sea 2 years ago. I read Under the Whispering Door in January, and so I plan to read this one next January. I have been loving his books so far. And then, finally, a book that I got, you guessed it, from the free little library that provides, We Are the Ants, by Sean David Hutchinson. And this one was big on the internet like a while back. It was published in 2016, which honestly, that's not as old as I thought it was. I thought it was older than that. But I do remember when this was kind of all over the internet. I've always been intrigued by the cover and the title without, again, knowing what it's even about. So I read the back cover and was surprised to find that it is about a teenage boy who is being abducted by aliens every night and being returned. So an interesting but kind of unexpected premise. I thought it was just a very normal contemporary YA. No aliens or fantasy elements or anything like that, but I am still excited to read it nonetheless. And those were all of the books that I have gotten from January until now. It is quite a few, but it is less than the amount of books that I have read from January until now, so that's good. We're keeping the numbers balanced. Let me know down below if you've gotten any exciting new reads this year. I hope you enjoyed watching. Remember, words matter.